Dénht'ā! Hello, how are you? My name is Ella Lamoureux, and welcome back to another episode of Dénht'ā. Hi, how are you? For the people at home that don't know, Dénht'ā in my Kaska language literally means hi, how are you? So I just like to say it as much as I can at the beginning of a podcast. But we're back with another amazing episode, and I'm quite excited to have a dear friend of mine that we've known for many, many years. Won't say how long because we don't look that old.
Exactly.
But give it up to the fantastic Joel.
Hello, how are you doing? I'm super excited to be here.
I'm really excited that you're here as well.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Could you do a little intro of yourself before we get going?
Well, my name's Joel. I'm Métis, and my family's from Lac St. Anne, and I grew up in Prince George, and I've been in Kelowna now for about 15 years.
Nice.
It's a long time.
This is a long time.
Yeah.
But we don't look that old.
No.
I've known you for about that long.
Yeah,
almost.
about that time from the Centra days.
Yeah, from the center days.
I don't really remember when we first met.
I was actually trying to think of that today because I was like, how did we meet?
Yeah.
And I was like, I have no idea.
I do remember meeting some people the first times, but like the plastics, they don't exist anymore. But
but they're still around, just not a group anymore.
Yeah.
They've dispersed.
Yes, they have. Yeah.
I've totally forgot about the center because like it's such a small little hole in the wall.
I
in
love the
Kelowna.
center.
The center was good, wasn't it?
It was good, yeah.
Do you remember when they put the black lights on in the washroom so no one would do drugs?
Well, you could barely fit in the washroom. Like, how do you do drugs at a washroom?
When two
You
people
could barely
went,
stand up in there.
when two people went in at the same time,
Yeah.
you're like, all right, we know what you're doing.
Yeah. You're like, oh, secret.
Yeah. I think the first time I fully remember meeting you or fully like having conversation with you was at 2 Muffs, One Collar.
2 Muffs, One Collar. I used to sing with you.
Yeah, before
Well, in the
Lisa got
shows.
pregnant. Lucy,
yeah,
Lucy got
Lucy,
pregnant.
yeah.
You two are always hanging out together. And then, you came and sang.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, tell me about your singing.
Oh, I like to sing. In another life, I probably would have been a superstar maybe. But I think it's something that you do almost traditionally, like going back to, many centuries ago. You'd sit around a fire and you'd sing and you'd drum and just make merriment. And so I like to kind of participate in that. I do a lot of karaoke. And, you don't always have to be good to actually get up there and have fun. Maybe these days people are a little criticize, but...
I like how you say that, but every time we have a show, you're such a bag of nerves.
Yeah,
right? You don't have to be good.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of, I wouldn't say anxiety, but sometimes I feel I'm my own worst critic.
Yeah.
So I'm really hard on myself.
I feel like that's the same with a lot of artists, right? Where the first one that criticizes the tiniest thing. And everyone's like, you're amazing. You're like, oh, but I faltered on this one part.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't even notice.
Yeah, exactly.
Because every time we have a show with you,
Yeah.
you performed a few times with us. And then also most recently at the Indigenous and Proud show, which hopefully are going to be back next year.
Yeah,
Fingers
I'm
crossed.
coming, yeah.
And you have such a beautiful voice. And
Thank
it's so
you.
fun seeing you sing. And you mentioned sitting around a fire and singing, and you said maybe in another life you were a superstar.
Yeah.
We'll just pretend that was like 300 years ago, and you're like the medicine man
Exactly.
or the shaman of a
Yeah.
indigenous tribe, just singing away.
Exactly. Well, and that's what I try to instill to other people, because I try to get people to come to karaoke. I haven't been for a while.
Yeah.
But they're like, I don't sing. And I always tell that story where I'm like, it's not about the singing. It's more about, it's not a cultural thing necessarily, but it's almost a spiritual thing for some people.
Yeah.
I've had some performances where I'm just like almost in another realm where it's going so well, and I'm just feeling all the spirits or whatever is happening. So
Just taking you away, having a good moment. I can see that because a lot of people say singing is a healing process, right? Like it tends to feel better. You're in a different place.
Yeah.
Just letting the words take over.
Yeah, exactly. One of the newer songs that I've been doing, it's kind of hard, but I had, it's Hallelujah. I like Katie Lang's version.
God, she's so good.
She's amazing.
Yeah, big old lesbian.
Yeah, she is. But I had one experience. I think Chloroform was the host.
Yeah.
And literally, I just closed my eyes and went for it. And I think probably the best song I've ever done.
Oh,
and I
nice.
just felt, I don't know, amazing.
Okay, well, next time at karaoke, I'm just going to request that.
Yeah, I'm going to try to bring it into my new repertoire.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose some songs. I'm going to add some new stuff.
At those ones, what are your current songs that are part of your list, your repertoire?
I do Unchained Melody a lot, and I think it's
a good
getting a
one.
little bit old for me. I've done it a lot, It's an older song.
Like old for you, or you're just getting bored of singing
I think I'm getting bored of singing
Okay.
it. I think I can branch out and do some different stuff.
Yeah.
So
Like Whitney Houston?
Whitney, I think I'm losing too. Like my voice has changed over the years. In my 20s, I would go to the bar and do a lot of Whitney and Tina and all those things. And I think I actually did it quite well. And the last few times I've tried to do those songs, it didn't quite hit.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, no, head in a different direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hallelujah, like you said, like going in a different direction. Hallelujah is quite a hard song to sing as well, though. It's pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say
Well, it's
high.
high. Yeah, I wouldn't say high
There
either.
are
I don't
some
know the
parts of the
music
song
lingo.
that are quite difficult, I would say, which I think is part of the challenge, and I quite like it. And I just love that version of Katie Lang at the Olympics in 2010. And I just, I'll watch it on YouTube every now and then and get chills.
Yeah. Says when she did that 2010 Olympics you're talking about, beforehand, she didn't do a lot. So I forgot who she was for a moment.
Yeah.
I heard the Hallelujah song and I was like, oh my God, I forgot that she
Yeah.
sang. Because what was her number one song?
Oh, goodness. I don't know if I know that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember too. I was like trying to play it in my head.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll put it in the description box.
Yeah.
Just kidding, we won't. But all right, let's switch gears a bit.
Sure.
Of the conversation. You mentioned your Métis. Growing up, did you have a lot of Métis influence growing up?
Not really. And I think that's something that me and my brother and family are attempting to change. We grew up as part of this sort of colonialism type thing. And the racism kind of dates back into, to my grandma's years. And I don't really know a lot before her dad. They grew up in Lake St. Anne, in Métis settlement. My grandma will tell stories of, there was a lot of German people in that region, and, she was called a half-breed. And
Which wasn't the term of endearment.
No.
No, it wasn't the Cher song.
Yeah. So I think when I was growing up, like we were called that as well, me and my brother, small town Prince George. When we moved into our teens, and I think people were a little bit more mature, it went away. But we definitely heard that when we were kids. And, my mom told me and my brother to tell everyone we were white.
Yeah.
So we didn't have a lot of culture growing up. I think my grandparents on my dad's side were a little racist. I think they were a little surprised my dad married, this Métis woman. And my mom, and on my grandma's side, we look quite Indigenous. We got those cheekbones and round faces and black
Blessed.
hair. Yeah. So, it was difficult. And we're trying to instill that in my nephew and kind of let him know where he's from and trying to gain some of that culture that was lost.
Yeah.
So, moving forward, that's something I'm trying to invest in.
I feel like that's a common thing with a lot of Métis people because we're of a certain generation, and they were told when they're younger, or it was just easier to admit that you're white because you balance living in looking Indigenous or looking white. You're like a half breed.
Yeah.
You had that fairer skin, and then a lot of Métis people I've spoken to, their family, the reason why it was hidden so long is because they're like, we're just going to say that we're white. We're going to have it easier for you. I don't want you to experience the racism that I went through.
Yeah.
Say you're a white person.
Well, and it was also part of the process, right? So my grandpa took a script, or not my grandpa, sorry, my great-grandfather took a script for land in Alberta, and essentially sold his rights away. They lived a very sort of white life in a house, and I think that they were ashamed of who they were as well, and that was passed on as we move through the generations. So we're trying to reverse that now, and it's kind of hard because you kind of feel like an imposter a little bit, where you're like, oh yeah, I'm Métis, and you're trying to find your roots, but you have people who are much more involved with their culture, and it's sometimes they kind of, I think, still look at you. You get racism from the native side of people as well.
Yeah, the lateral violence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I find like I've seen there was a big shift in that because I recognize it well. If you just say that you're native and you weren't doing anything active in the culture, like, oh, well, are you?
Yeah.
Like, okay, can't get rid of our blood. But then I was talking about this before with someone else. about the new term pretendian, which there
are a lot of them out there.
Yeah. And a lot of them was given to Métis people. And that was because of there be people saying that they're Métis or they're Indigenous, but then they're just using it for government benefits instead of taking the time to learn their history. And they're like, that's the defining point between the two. But then I also find it's like because we're trying to get away from the word Indian, it's such a negative term to say. But I feel that, like yourself, you said you're trying to like get back into your culture and instill into your nephews this. So that leads to different examples. So I feel like if people are treating you differently, then they're kind of still part of the problem.
Well, and it is a problem. It's a global problem. Well, not necessarily global, but at least nationally. It was created, and it's hard to reverse that. We're talking years and years of, trying to whitewash
oppression.
Canada, So, and I think when you look at where we're now, I think we're moving forward. I had a conversation with a lady at work today. She came in and was like, "What is truth and reconciliation?" And I was kind of like,
"How do you not know this?"
And I do to a point, but I just don't know if she's a Native lady, and I think she's a lot more versed in the process and what's happening, and there's a lot of confusion around it. And she was asking some of the more Caucasian people at work, and they were all kind of like, almost didn't want to engage in the conversation because they didn't want to say the wrong thing. But I mean, I think you have to have that conversation to get the education and to learn and to grow. And a lot of Native people, because I work at the hospital, I'm a registered nurse. So there's a lot of trauma when it comes to the health profession.
Like uncertainty, a lot of lack of trust when they come in there, and then they're on their guard. Like, how much do I disclose?
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot of assumption, right, on how people live their lives and, alcohol abuse. And I think they're really working on trying to get away from that, like trauma-informed practice and those types of things.
Let's talk about the hospital scene a little bit, because I also remember growing up, being younger and going to the hospital, and then my grandmother being like, "Beware what you say to them," because they were worried that if I said the wrong thing, they would try to take me away from my family. And then so like we were schooled on saying things were good, and things were good. Like if my parents had a drink now and then, that's all they had. But if I said they had a drink and she was Native, they'd be like, "Oh, she's drinking." And be like, my mother barely drinks. She'll have like one cooler and be like, "I'm good." So do you find that there's a shift now with people coming into the hospital, that they're maybe a little bit more open, or they're still quite guarded?
Well, I know that the hospital is making a concerted effort. I know that there are some policies coming down the pipe. There is a sort of a forum coming up, I think, in the middle of February, where they're going to talk about those types of issues within healthcare and sort of how to fix them. And a lot of people are coming to the table about it. I work, so I can't go. But I think it's for the older generation, it's very similar. They come in, they're very, very closed off when they're at the hospital. I think they're assuming that they're going to be persecuted in some way. So we do have like an Aboriginal navigator who sometimes helps and tries to make it a bit of an easier transition. But there's a lot of trauma there.
I can bet. And like the hospital has a smudging room now, right? Is that it?
They have a sacred space, you could smudge in there if you want. I know people sometimes do, but it's a all denominational type space.
Okay, so it's not just, it's like all denominations in this one space. Okay, that makes sense, because I remember someone telling me, I've never been there, but they said that there was one for like Bible people, one for the natives. And I was like, that makes sense. But
well, there may be. I'm unaware then. But I think it's just the sacred
just hearsay.
Space.
I hear something and I believe it.
Well, a lot of people do. So that's how it goes.
And how about yourself? What made you want to get into the medical industry, like nursing?
Well, originally, before I'd come out in Prince George, my aunt was a registered nurse. And of course, she was like, "You should be a nurse. You'd be a great nurse." And at that time, I thought, ew. I was like, "Could you find a gear job for me?" Which is, also some negative stuff going on. But this is 20-some years ago.
That's right.
And I lived in Vancouver for quite a few years. And when I moved away, I couldn't really find as good a job. I was working service industry at the time. And I don't know, there was this inkling, and I was like, I should go back to school and be a nurse. And that's sort of where it went. And I honestly should have done it when I was 18.
Yeah.
I just love my job so much.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020, right?
Not always, yeah.
We were young. We grew up in the north because I also grew up around where you did. And then when we have all that lack of community and then we go to a bigger city,
Yeah.
last thing we're probably thinking about is school. This myself, not putting it on you, I partied a lot.
Yeah.
When I first left my small town, northern BC, I was like, there's no one here to watch me. I can be as gay as I want. I'm going to suck as much dick as I want. I'm going to do what I want, not have to worry about repercussions.
And I think the similar thing happened to me. You know, I wore the sparkles and I wore the shiny things, and I was at the clubs all the time. And I've calmed down over the years, but yeah, there's that just like, I'm here, I'm out, you know, let's have fun. And
literally trying to catch up for all those years. That's what we saw on TV.
Yeah.
Watched too much Queer as Folk when we were younger. And we're like, we need to live that Brian Kinney life.
Exactly.
So you mentioned you grew up in Prince George, right? Do you go back often?
No, and all my family's not there anymore. We've all moved away. My grandma was the last one who came to Kelowna. So we have a small family, and we're all here now. The last time I was back was probably 2010, so it's been quite some time. Yeah.
The reason why I brought that up is because when I talk to some white people, some non-native people in this area, they don't see the racism as much because they don't have a lot of like visual representation of it, so they don't see it. But I find the farther you go up north, the more blatant the racism gets.
Yes.
In Prince George specifically, they had a ghetto in there, and that was pretty much where all the natives lived. And it was violent, don't get me wrong. Like, I was a young, little, tiny, pretty boy, and I didn't want to get drunk there. But the reason I was going to ask if you saw a difference between there, but do you see a big difference from up there and here?
Yes, now. I mean, I think now that I'm older, I don't see it as much. But that's sort of where I'm kind of trying to start understand my trauma as well. I'm at that kind of age where I'm trying to invest in healing some of those intergenerational traumas and the things that happened to me that I didn't think were trauma. And now I'm like, oh, okay. How do I heal this? And so, yeah, I think it's a little bit better here, but I don't notice as much. And I also pass for white, I think. A lot of people, when they ask me, they're like, are you Italian? Are you... They know that I'm not Caucasian, but they usually don't assume I'm Métis or First Nations.
And was there a time when you would not say that you're a native compared to now? Do you say I'm Métis?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just tell people I'm Métis. It's really easy. Try to explain sort of what that looks like. But when we were kids, we were taught, like, we would just tell people we were white. And we didn't know any better. You know, we were 8, 10 years old.
It makes sense. Made it easier.
Yeah.
I'm also culturally ambiguous. And some people don't know that I'm native. So they just assume, like, if I'm Italian or I'm Hispanic, they just go on with that. And then when I tell them that I'm Indigenous, they're like, oh.
You're like,
It's like, okay, does that change your view of me?
Well, there's that negative connotation, right?
There was, because we grew up in that time where I started telling people that I was white when I was younger because it was easier for me to navigate the world instead of saying I was Indigenous, because back in the day, Indigenous was synonymous with drunk. Like, you know, like there was no thing. And I mentioned this on another, I don't know if I talked to you about it, but when I was younger growing up, there was no healing the community. It was, you need to get out. You know, it's like if you can get out, then you're going to become successful. Exactly. If you got out. Now there's a more focus on like healing the community and building up, which I think is great. So as soon as I got out, I was like, I'm Spanish.
You're free.
I'm Filipino.
I made it out.
Exactly. I'd say is anything but. And but now I'm like, I'm native. And if they treat me differently, I'd be like, all right.
Well, and I honestly, I don't think I get that negative connotation. It's hard to say, though. I don't really know what people think. I know I don't at work. I'm pretty proud of where I came from, and I'm sort of trying to learn that. Got a big box of documents that I had planned to go through before I came here. It hasn't happened, but it's sitting there. And just kind of looking back to where we're at. I know my mom and grandma did a trip to Alberta last year, and they went to some of the Métis settlements, and our family names are all over the place. And so just trying to look into that and learn and see where that kind of comes from. And I think my grandma's healing too, and my mom. So it's a process.
You mentioned that you're starting to try to heal like past trauma that you've had. And then as you get older, you realize that things were traumatic and you didn't realize that. I'm in the same boat. All these things that I was like, oh, I'm fine. But now when I sit and think about it, it's like, oh, maybe this is why I do it this way. And this is why I do that. And it's wild that when we get older, we have this introspective look into our life. And sometimes I feel like it might be blissful just to not.
Ignorance?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, do I want to open these can of worms?
Yeah.
But you're like, no, I can be a better person.
Well, and I think that's what it is you want to be a better person. You're looking forward to life because life is going to end at some point. And I think for me, I want to, when I pass over to whatever that might be, and I really don't know, I want to feel like I led a good life. And so you've got to invest in some of that. Sometimes I'm not the most well-behaved person. I look back and I was like, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. Where did that come from? Because I want to be well-respected and I want to be, I guess, loved.
Yeah.
And I want to love myself as well, I think, is the biggest picture. Yeah. And we only have so much time in this world.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like trying to be more authentic to yourself.
Yeah. So, which I think I'm the last person I choose as someone I love, right? I put my care out to my patients, to my family, to my friends, and I often go missed, I guess.
Not anymore, right? 2024.
No, working on it, baby. Working on
you.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Do you feel that you're becoming more of a respectful person in the community kind of thing?
I think so. I mean, I think there have been occasions where I have made some mistakes. Yeah. And I guess that's where that trauma comes in because I think something has caused, has triggered me. And I've behaved in a way that I wouldn't find becoming of a young gentleman. Yeah. So, but those are some of the moments where I'm like, oh, what's happening here? Which is actually kind of a good thing, right? Because you're able to sort of take that moment to look at yourself and go, okay. Yeah.
And then like moving forward from it's different as well, right? Because if you can acknowledge you've done something and then you can be like, okay, how can I rectify this now? Yeah. Instead of pushing it under a carpet and hoping it goes away. Well,
I think that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And they kind of just ignore it. And to me, again, that's that whole introspective moment. And how do you stand up from that? How do you move forward and not treat yourself poorly because you made a mistake?
Yeah, just gotta forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Give yourself some of that love you're talking about.
Exactly.
I always I think about this because I've done a lot of stupid stuff in public as well. And I quickly learned the easiest way for me to get over it is to apologize and go for it. Because sometimes I'd be like, ooh, did I just yell at that person? Did I just like throw that drink in their face? I do this stupid thing. And then it's just learning how to move forward from it. Yeah. But I sometimes think how happy I am that we didn't have social media when we were younger. Because the stupid things that I used to do in the name of alcohol. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, we don't need to go there, but love.
Yeah. Well, and it's a real thing. I think we all have our journey, and none of us are perfect. And I think we all have these moments where we're like, okay, how are we going to navigate life now? Yeah. So I'm having that moment. And again, it's not just going to be something that changes overnight. But, making a sort of the effort to take that moment to look at yourself and be like, how can I be better?
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Well, I think you're a good person. So
I'm really starting to love myself.
Yeah, I adore you every time I see you.
Thank you.
I don't really have any bad stories about you.
Yeah. Well, they're out there.
Oh, I've heard a few things, but
Yeah, I'm
me
sure.
personally with you, I haven't had any bad
Well,
experiences.
and you always have to look at things from, there's their story, your story, and then there's the truth, which is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So
Whoever
you can-
remembers it.
Yeah. Well, most of the time it was out while we were drinking, so, it's,
exactly.
it's blurry for everyone.
Never happened.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned that your parents went home to check out the Métis settlements.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever want to do that?
So my grandma goes back to Lake St. Anne every year. They have a pilgrimage, that Catholic type thing, which a lot of people see quite negatively. My grandma is a very happy armchair Catholic.
Oh.
Believes in God and all those types of things. And she goes back every year. It's also a time where she sees her relatives. She doesn't really see them other than that. So it's a once a year thing, and she goes for, 1 or 2 weeks. My uncle lives in Edmonton, so he comes out. And there was a reunion last year. I wasn't able to make it because of work. So I have been thinking I might go this year because I haven't been back for probably 15 years. So to see how things are and what's happening.
So you've been there before?
I have. I used to
nice.
go all the time with my grandma as a little kid.
Oh, nice.
And then a few times when I was like a teen and young adult. But it's been quite some time.
Yeah. Do they partake in the Métis aspect of it as well when they're there? It's just their...
Yes. I mean, it's again that sort of idea of who we are.
Yeah.
We have distant relatives that are white people, I think it's just sort of a celebration of who we are, and I think
Nice.
The reunion last year was sort of recognizing those Métis roots and sort of where we came from. And if I was to go back again, it would be to sort of investigate those types of things. Now that I'm older and I'm more interested and looking to develop my culture, I think I'd be a lot more excited about it.
Is there any Métis traditions that you've heard about that you want to incorporate into your life? Or is it still things you want to learn about?
I wear the sash. I have a sash. I think that's where things get blurry for me culturally because I don't know a lot of that types of stuff. I smudge at my home every now and then. I like to clean out those bad spirits.
Yeah, get that bad juju out.
Yeah, and get a good refresh. But I don't know if that's traditionally Métis or not. It's something I've adopted as something I do. But I'm really quite naive when it comes to the culture. I know there's the jig and the fiddles and all that type of thing. But I'm quite naive.
Yeah. As far as I know, I believe smudging is like universal across all of Canada with Métis and Indigenous people.
Perfect.
The only
Love
thing
it.
that changes is the different medicines they put in it per region. So that's the only thing that's different. Like for here, they have a lot of that white sage, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Up north where I'm from, they have like this mushroom, this fungus that we burn with it. That's quite fragrant.
Yeah.
And then later on, when I got older, I found that if you add it to your snuff, it gets you high.
Oh, you're like, hello.
So I was like, is this a shamanic thing they used to
Yeah.
do? My grandfather was like, yeah, the shaman used to use this in their little medicine walks they would do. But my dad said that it just got him, he said it felt like he took a hit of cocaine.
Oh.
And I was like, wow, the shamans
Yeah.
are just really getting out there.
Yeah, fair enough.
So yeah, it's like, that's amazing with your smudging.
Yeah.
Do you like smudging?
I do. We left the house today thinking I needed to do a smudge. I came home this morning and some of my towels in my bathroom were on the floor, and I was like, how did they get there? And then when I was in the shower, something fell off. I have this native, it's kind of like a dream catcher sort of thing. And it was on the window, and it had fallen off. And I heard it when I was in the shower, came out, and it was off. And I was like, I think we need to smudge the place.
Time to smudge.
Yeah.
Something followed you home from the hospital.
Yeah. So get out there.
That trauma's trying to get inside the house again. You're like, kudos there. Not ready to deal with you.
Exactly.
Amazing. Do you have any... let's talk about spirits, because I think it's fantastic. And you said that you smudged. Have you ever had like an experience that really spooked you out?
So when my mom's dad, passed away, we had stayed in the hotel that night. We had his ashes, and there was a moment that he was there.
Yeah.
I woke up and told my mom Grandpa was there, and she's like, "Shh, don't be silly. Go back to bed." So there was that experience as a younger guy. I was probably about 13.
Yeah.
And I do have like a spiritual type belief. I think they're out there and good, the bad, and the ugly.
Like we have the ancestral plane in a lot of
Yeah.
Indigenous cultures, so they're there hanging out, guiding us throughout life.
Yeah. And then, when my cats passed on, my second one, I used to always leave my window open at my condo, and he would just come and go as he pleased.
Yeah.
But I'd be in bed, and I'd feel him get onto the bed and come up.
Yeah.
And for quite a few weeks after he was gone, like I would be sleeping and I'd
Feel
something get up on the bed and come up there. So I do believe there's something going on out there.
That's cute though. Like you're coming saying hi, just being like, Dad, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna sleep here.
Yeah. And just other things and try to learn about it. Shapeshifters. My mom's
Like the baby stealers?
Grandma's brother, they say, was a shapeshifter, Alfonso.
Yeah.
So on a full moon, he'd run around the house naked and turn into a wolf. So I don't know how truthful that was.
Yeah.
Might have just been a little bit of whiskey, but
Wait a bit. I thought you were talking about like Win-the-Wills and like Wendigos and stuff like that.
yeah, I don't know. I
So-
believe in all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, like and I don't know with your culture, but in mine, to get rid of cannibalism.
Yeah, okay.
If an Indigenous person partaked, then they would shapeshift. They would turn into a win-the-will kind of thing, and they become evil spirits because they're taking in all this evilness into their body.
Yeah.
And it used to scare me because if you ever used to go camping, do you ever hear like the wind through the trees? Yeah, apparently that was supposed to be the win-the-will luring you out into the woods. So if
okay.
you ever followed that, then
You're in
bye-bye.
trouble. You're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I remember hearing that when I was camping, and it just like put the blanket over my head.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Well, and there's just all those different types of cultural things. Like a big one for me, I've been obsessed with Sasquatch, Bigfoot since knee-high to a grasshopper.
Just because you like hairy men.
Well, I do like them. But one of our journeys to Lake St. Anne with my grandma, she took the back roads instead of the highway. She's like, I'm going to go the old way. It was a stormy night. Rain was coming down. My brother and I were sleeping, but she will swear up and down that Sasquatch came out of the ditch, ran across the road, and went back. It's probably a bear or something, but
Yeah. Sasquatch, though.
it's always a fond memory that I'll have always. The same summer, the similar figure was watched by quite a few people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what truth there is in that.
Could be a shapeshifter.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said your grandfather turned into a wolf? Was that it?
Or, well, my grandma's brother, Alfonso.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Could be Alfonso.
Yeah, could have been.
there.
He's been
You don't
gone
know.
for a while, but, who knows, right?
In the spirit realm.
Yeah,
running
exactly,
around.
exactly. I mean, and who knows? You might come back. That would be fun. I wouldn't mind
Yeah.
haunting a couple of people.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that'll be your future.
Yeah.
You'll
I
be a
don't know.
shapeshifter running around in the woods.
Yeah, no, I'd rather not, but who knows, right?
Yeah. We used to, in the Yukon, because they have different names for everything, it was Mitzi, what we'd call the human half animal thing that
Yeah.
ran around in the Yukon.
Yeah.
And once again, they use it as a scare tactic. Or watch it, or Mitzi is going to get you.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah. Well, that's not quite what we're trying to instill in my nephew.
I know, we shouldn't. We shouldn't like teach with horror, terror.
But I believe that there's some truth to some of these things, right?
Oh, totally.
I watch a lot of APTN, and I think there's quite a few movies and stories that have similar kind of shapeshifters and spirits. And a few years back, I was seeing a counselor to sort of, again, suss through some of my trauma and what's going on in my life. And she's a white woman. She loved us, though. And she was like, you have such a wonderful history and the spirits, and just to center yourself. And that kind of meant a lot. And just sort of sitting down and kind of channeling some of that energy into healing.
It's true. Like having to focus it down, because healing is such a process. You mentioned earlier about a journey, and everyone has to take a different journey.
Yeah.
And if someone tries to be like, oh, well, I've done this, be like, oh, that's cool for you. But you can't push
not
that on
mine,
someone
yeah.
else. Yeah. You got to find your own truth, find your own path.
Yeah.
Or like what a lot of natives call it, the red road, road
Okay.
of healing. I don't know how it is with Métis culture.
I don't know either.
If you're on the red road, you're doing good.
Yeah,
If you're on the black road,
Not so good.
not so good.
Yeah.
So, what are you can tell me if you don't answer this or not, but what are you actively doing now to heal?
Oh, well, I am seeing a counselor. Just sort of over the phone. I'm more of an in-person person, but that kind of went away with COVID.
Yeah.
It's not something I talk to a lot of people about. I don't even think very many people know. So we chat about once a month, and the conversations vary.
Yeah.
And then I'm really trying to take some time to figure out who I am. Like, who is Joel? And I think I've tried to be a lot of different people for a lot of people. And I have a bad habit of trying to conform to what I think people want from me. And it's been going on for a long time. And so it's just that self-investigation of who I am and what I stand for and what I won't accept.
Yeah.
And that's probably the first time I've done that in my life. I've been doing a little bit of dry January.
Nice.
It's kind of fall off the rails the last couple days. But sort of investigating whether that serves me. And I want to get back into the gym again. Those types of things.
Yeah. Because you mentioned the gym, but you swam across the Okanagan Lake before, right?
Yeah, a couple times.
Do you find that was a little healing process?
Absolutely, I love it. And when I swim, it's what I would compare to yoga for some people.
Yeah.
You know, you just kind of go back and forth. I've done some big ones. There was the rattlesnake swim, which is like 8K, and I'm certainly not in the shape to do that right now.
Next year.
Maybe. But that's definitely something that I find quite healing as well. But it just fell off. I just fell out of it,
Yeah.
you know, fell into some negative coping mechanisms, and it's trying to reverse some of those bad behaviors I've sort of taken on.
And it happens. COVID derailed pretty much everyone trying to get back on things and had to be distant from people.
Yeah.
And COVID just fucked everyone up, basically, you know, changed everything, changed the game, changed the layout.
Yeah.
If someone came up to you asking for advice on where they, like, for healing, how would you say? Because you said you're talking to someone, you're doing things for yourself. If you were yourself and you were able to ask, if younger self was able to ask you now, what can I do? What advice would you give him?
I think it's just to be yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really caused the most turmoil in my life, is that I've tried to be what other people wanted from me. And so I've lost who I am.
Yeah.
So, you know, to tell younger Joel, you know, be as gay as you want, like run around like a little fairy, you know, skip around, have fun, sing to the top of your lungs. Because I think that's where we lose ourselves, is we're trying to conform to, you know, what's in a magazine or what's on TV.
Yeah.
And it's not a reality for us. It's their reality. Yeah. I think that's sort of the biggest thing. Then to be more proud that I'm a gay man. You know, I carried around a lot of negative thoughts about myself. And I mean, that was instilled by, you know, Prince George community and that period in time.
Yeah.
So
I get that. No, growing up queer as well in northern BC can be quite mean up there. And also we had to think about safety.
Yeah.
I don't know how your living situation was in Prince George, but I mostly didn't come out for a while because of safety. I was uncertain where I'd go. And then hearing everyone around me talking about how disgusting queer people were, and then not having any representation of that in the media, I'd grow up thinking that I was going to grow up to be a bad person because I had no one to look up to.
Yeah.
And then once you go out to the big world and you can be as gay as you want, changes everything. So do you think if you can grow up without, where am I going with this? I'm thinking about like growing up with the shame of being a queer person and then not fully loving yourself when you're older, because I can relate to that. Because I remember telling myself, oh God, life would be so much easier if I wasn't gay. And then now when I think about this, because I truly am at a place where I'm happy where I'm going. I shouldn't say truly, I'm getting there, but I'm quite there. And I was like, oh God, I love who I am and where I'm at and what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I would love to be able to get to a place where no one would feel the shame that I had when I was younger.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's that lateral violence. Like, we shame each other we are unkind to each other. High school was not a safe place for me. And I wish I'd had the confidence to just do me. I think it would have made a whole world of difference for myself. You know, I didn't get back to school until I was later in life because, you know, I thought I wasn't able to learn, you know. It wasn't a safe place to, you know, to learn. So I think having that confidence and the ability to love yourself and just do your thing, it's super important. And that's what I'm trying to instill in my nephew.
Yeah.
You know, I want him to feel loved and I want him to feel confident to do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to have that. Just
hope
by
so.
knowing you.
Yeah.
Like, I feel
We'll
like it.
see.
I've met your brother a couple times, and he seems
Yeah.
like a fun-loving guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, so it's going to be good. You're like,
Work
I'm
out.
going to instill in everything in you that I wish I had when I was
Yeah,
younger.
and I think that is such a great idea, and I think that's what we should be trying to do.
Yeah.
I think what sometimes happens is we instill the negative stuff we learned.
Yeah.
So I think,
Unintentionally.
yeah, exactly. You know, yeah,
You're like, got to heal. You're like, I'm going to heal myself by giving you everything that I wish I had.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. We are going to be wrapping this up a little bit, but do you have anything specific that you'd love to say about your culture, where you want to go with the future of your identity in?
Well, I'd really
Métis?
like to investigate more into sort of my history and our family lineage. You know, it dates back some time, and I'd like to sort of see how far that goes back. I want to take some time to really figure out where I fit in all of that. And, you know, I'm proud to be Métis, and I know that there's a very long history of our people, and I want to be involved with that.
Yeah. Nice. And it's like, do you know if Kelowna has a Métis association?
They
It must,
do,
right?
yes.
And do you do anything with them?
I don't. I follow them on Facebook. I know that they have a sort of a early learners program as well, which I've been trying to coax my nephews into.
Going?
Yeah.
Maybe you should go. It's
Yeah.
good times.
I think maybe you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take them
Yeah.
to like some kind of activity.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great. Is there anything, last thoughts you'd love to say to your lovely new fans?
Well, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, it was a fun time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joel. Like I said, I've known you for quite a amount of years, and we've had a few conversations, but I don't think we've ever actually sat down and got to know each
had a
other.
heart to heart, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I've gotten to know you quite well recently.
I'm a bit nervous. I was a little too authentic, but you know, it is what it is. And
It is what it is,
Yeah.
but you know, like you're true. We've had the conversation earlier about being authentic yourself and showing your true identity. And to me, that's a fun-loving queer man that is a nurse, who wants to be loved and known.
yeah,
There you go. Step
exactly.
one.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.